Childhood trauma can have a devastating impact on a person's life. It can interfere with healthy brain development and result in atypical brain formation. It can impact on a person's nervous system, causing it to malfunction and move into a state of hypervigilance, where a person becomes frozen in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which is the body's stress response. Childhood trauma also negatively influences a person's attachment style, which results in a lot of difficulties in adult relationships. It also impacts on a person's sense of self and their identity, how they think about themselves. It can result in identity confusion. It can result in low levels of self-worth, almost a sense of self-loathing or a sense of inadequacy, a sense of being unlovable. Childhood trauma can result in a person having some very negative narratives about the world around them. It can make it very difficult to be present, to be mindful, and this is particularly prevalent when a person has experienced ongoing trauma, because what happens there, as mentioned earlier, is the nervous system forgets to switch off. It malfunctions, it becomes hypervigilant, and consequently a person is walking around the place with the sense of being in danger, and there not actually being any danger present, and consequently they almost create stories in their mind in order to match what they're experiencing in their body. And this can result in so much angst that a person finds life extremely difficult to cope with and ends up looking for coping mechanisms or substances to try and help them regulate, to try and help them experience some sort of normality. A person who experiences childhood trauma finds it very hard to make sense of what happened, particularly because in childhood we don't necessarily, embed our memories in a cognitive way. We embed them in a somatic way. So our memories may be stored as sensations or as maybe smells or tastes or environment. So we find it very difficult to understand why it is that we feel a certain way. Also, a child who is experiencing a lot of trauma tends to have a belief about themselves that they are inherently flawed, that they are bad. And it basically means that they are constantly under attack, because if you have a very negative narrative about yourself, if you are constantly criticizing yourself, if you are constantly judging yourself, your immune system suffers, your physical health suffers, and your mental and emotional health just becomes non-existent, because you are constantly trying to defend yourself from yourself. Addiction and dissociation are very common coping mechanisms. I mean, a person is just looking for any way that they can possibly get to escape their life, or to numb out, or to just ease their pain a little bit, just to feel nice for a moment. Dissociation is where a person almost switches off completely as a way of coping, whereas addiction is that attempt to numb or to soothe the pain a little bit, to regulate a very dysregulated nervous system and really, really big emotions. Depression and anxiety are extremely common in people who have experienced childhood trauma, because there's just this deep sadness. There is this inability to deal with the aftertaste of what has happened, what has gone before. And then there are some, I suppose, more subtle ways that people deal with their feelings of inadequacy. Some people become people pleasers, perfectionists. Some people just decide that they're never going to do anything with their lives because it's safer to assume that they're always going to be a failure, that they're always going to be useless. Some people control their bodies. Some people try to control other people. Some people may develop obsessive behaviors, obsessive ways of thinking. And usually people find their mind a very distressing place to be. It tends to be quite punitive, quite repetitive. Emotions feel too big, so big that a person tends to dissociate from the body and become disembodied, so that they're no longer in tune with themselves. It's like as if they've departed from themselves completely. And this results in this actual rejection of yourself as a whole. So it's about learning how to integrate yourself again. And healing from trauma is a complex process. I mean, talk therapy is a huge part of it, but it is not the only part. A person also needs to learn how to be in their own body, how to self-regulate, how to connect with others, how to be creative, how to have fun, how to, I suppose, challenge some of the ways in which they interpret things, how to challenge some of their own perspectives, their distorted thinking patterns, and also to be able to tolerate difficult sensations and emotions, to be able to tolerate being in the present moment even when the present moment is painful. Meditation, emotional regulation skills, getting out into nature, learning ways of somatically releasing tension within the body, learning how to talk about what's going on for you, learning how to, I suppose, safely co-regulate with other people, learning how to trust others, learning how to trust yourself, learning how to intervene with some of the punitive thoughts that you may have about yourself. These are all essential aspects of a person's journey towards feeling integrated with the self again, and towards being able to live in a way that is creative and filled with curiosity and appreciation and awe, as opposed to living in a state that is full of fear, angst, anger, anxiety and shame. If you would like to find out how you can deal with past trauma or work with me, get in touch with me on the website. It's fundamentals.ie.